Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you with us. If you are a first-time listener, thank you. We're glad you found us. Hey, listen, I'm not a bashful person. I am a well-dressed beggar. I even have a collar on today. And so if you like the show, please give us 5 stars. It helps us with positioning in the app stores. So thank you for joining us. And if you're a return listener, thank you very much for your listenership. Because of you and our great guests, we have rocketed into the top 10 fastest growing podcasts in the world. And that's quite an accomplishment. Now, I don't know what the real stats are. They claim somewhere between 1 million and 2 million podcasts. But that's a lot of podcast choices. So thank you for listening in. All right, let's get the house cleaning out of the way real quick. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are. And don't forget that we will shamelessly beg for good ratings. So please do that. If you do not like the podcast platform you're on, don't worry. There's 23 of them out there that you can listen to us on. So wherever you can get a podcast, we're there. We have listeners across the world, 32 countries, 6 continents. And if we could figure out a way to market to penguins and get them smartphones, we'd probably have some in Antarctica too. So thank you for stopping by and listening. And one last thing, do not forget to stop by the show website, rexandrewshow.com. The reason I tell you to go there is we're going to cover lots of things today in our conversation with our guest, okay? But our bios of our guests are there, links to their assets online, their websites, their social media, et cetera, are on the website. So it's always good to have people stop by and take a look at what we're doing, some of the neat offers that we have out there on the site, and just some fun things that are cooking. All right, so let's get on with it. We're past all that terms and conditions kind of stuff, right? So today we've got another great guest with us. You know, my saying is I got too many interests for just one lifetime. But my problem is just around the corner is something that's new, a new discovery. And we have one of those with us today. And so I'm excited to bring her on today. She does a lot of things out there. She's a marriage and life coach and pretty expertise on that. We're going to talk about that. I love her personality and her energy. She is someone who really likes to live in courage and humor. And right now, the thing she's really focusing on is her podcast. She's got a great podcast that's been out, season 3 coming up. I've been at that over a year. And the name of her podcast is You Gotta Meet Her. And I think you're going to agree with that. That's an appropriate slogan for today. So welcome to the show today, Christine Bahe. How are you?
Good, thank you. I need you to follow me around and give me that intro everywhere I go.
Okay, so offline, I'll send you the friend payments, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So as you've heard on our story, when you've tuned in and listened to some of the ones that we do, we like to tell people stories because life is about the human experience. And, you know, there's no such thing as success falling out of the sky on people. It just doesn't happen that way. And so we want to know the background and get to know you and understand, you know, how did Christine get to where you are today? You're doing some pretty bold things. Not everybody's willing to step out there and put themselves out there and really kind of expose or, you know, be transparent and kind of stuff. And so that's unique and we want to share that. The reason we also like to go on to the backstories, as people would say today, is it's motivating for so many people because there's a lot of people out there doing things or want to do things and they just don't step off the curb and make that first step. So if you could, this is sort of the list. Now, don't forget, I'll remind you of any questions that you don't get to. Okay, so we can take them one at a time. So where were you born? Where did you grow up? Did you have siblings that survived your harassments? Something about your parents. So I want to understand about, you know, the types of work that they did, your family life, those things, because that contributes a lot. And a lot of the successful people I've interviewed, it was sort of one of two areas. They got a lot of support at home. And so it was really encouraging for them to go do some of the things. Or they didn't get any support at home. And it was like, whoa, this is a motivation because I'm going to show you differently kind of thing. So family environment makes a lot of difference in those things. Now, growing up, I'd love to know about what you focused on. I mean, what did you do? Were you playing sports? Were you, you know, theater, drama, you know, dance, shoplifting? Now, if you're shoplifting, you don't have to list the stores. We'll just skip by that. I had a guy on our show that was a 15-year-old car thief. So we talked about that. So whatever it is for you, we'll go there, okay? Then I want to hopscotch through some of your education and then some life experiences and then talk about what you're focusing on today with your podcast. So let's take it away, Christine. So can you start us off in the beginning? Again, I will remind you.
Okay.
So
I
where were
think
you
I got
born?
it.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was
Okay.
born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We were just speaking, it's North Texas,
Yep.
basically. If you don't know where Oklahoma is, it's just right north over Texas. I actually live 45 minutes away from the border now.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So but I am in Texas right now.
Okay.
I was born and raised there, so I stayed there until I was about 19.
19. Okay. Fantastic. Tell me about your family a little bit. Siblings, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yes. So I have a younger sister. She's 3 years younger than me. We are polar opposites.
Okay.
I am the social butterfly. I wanted friends everywhere. Anytime I'm ready for a party. And my sister was, I'm going to get my book, a blanket, and sit in the closet so no one messes with me.
Okay.
And to this day, we're still both like that.
Okay.
So it's kind of nice because now I see the beauty in what she does.
Yeah.
And she now understands why she needs to get out of the closet. And I need to understand, okay, I understand why you need to be in there.
Okay.
Quarantine made that really apparent, right?
I bet.
It was hard for us extroverts.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I can tell you we're going to have to pry words out of you today. So,
yeah.
Everybody's, as a podcaster, has done one of those interviews where you're like, okay, can I get you to talk?
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be a problem today. Okay, so tell us about your parents. What did your parents do when you were growing up?
Yeah. So my father worked for Ford for about 30 years. He's a beaten body, and then he also did moonlighting for himself on the side.
Okay.
And my mother has had a house cleaning business. Well, first she was a stay-at-home mom, and then she had a house cleaning business where they both now do that. She retired my father, and they are one of the what do you call it? Well-known house cleaning companies in Tulsa, Oklahoma now.
Oh, fantastic. That's cool. So sort of the corporate everyday guy turns into entrepreneur with his wife.
Yeah, and it's so funny because my family, my father is so dominant. So for my mother to be like, I'm gonna retire you and you're gonna work for me now is just so weird to see as an adult now, because little Christine would never think that my father would be okay with my mom telling him what to do in a secular sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. How crazy. So what was your family life like? Were you fairly close-knit family? Were you just sort of housemates? I mean, there's all different types of family dynamics. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So my mother was a stay-at-home mother till I was about 8.
Okay.
Then once my sister got into kindergarten, basically, and there was, housekeeper kind of things for her to do. And my father was very big on, these are my girls, I'm going to protect them, and we're going to keep everything together. So we never had like cable. I would say we were lower middle class, but we were always being taught life lessons and goals and family. Family was drilled into you like no other. That's the only people in your life is family. Every Sunday, family dinner. Grew up Christian as well. I would say that I've kind of stopped away from that today. Believer, but I'm a Christian that cusses. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that's a qualification to step into a church. I don't think that's
I don't know. But yes, family.
I appreciate your candor. I think that's great.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, I can F-bomb you all day and be, quote a scripture right after.
Well, just as long as you probably don't commingle those.
Right. No. Only if it's.
I think the Lord meant this effing thing, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I've yet to find a church where the preacher is like, "Isn't Jesus effing good?" Like, I'm still on the search for that, but I don't know if that would actually work. But my mother was number 12 out of 13, and my father was number 8 out of 9. So
you have a huge extended family.
Yes.
Wow.
So that's why I say family was very big. But my father, in his time of going to school, did not know about learning disabilities. So he didn't realize that he had a learning disability. It just took him a little slower to pick up things. And so he was drilling into my sister and me that we needed to study as hard as possible. You don't have to be the smartest, but you have to take time to study and put goals in front of yourself because no one else is going to do that for you.
Sure.
And that has definitely gone through through my life. It has stuck with me because it's been ingrained in me. And that was probably one of the biggest things was experiences, diversity, and education. And not education as secular of college and schooling, but self-awareness of what is going on with you and how you react to other people type of education, more of a wisdom knowledge kind of education.
Okay. So looking back, would you kind of just, summarize by saying you had a fairly typical working class upbringing then?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. The only time I went to a different type of school, I went to private school,
Okay.
but I was with people that their parents were the mayor of the city,
Right.
or their CEOs and things like that. And both of my parents were blue collar.
Right.
But I didn't see myself as any different.
Okay.
So I felt like that was still typical
Okay.
at that time.
All right, fantastic. Now, how did you spend your spare time? What were your interests growing up as a kid? Sports or anything like that, dance or
No, I was
horses?
never into that. I was always into like how to make a business, even when I was little.
Oh, okay.
I was the girl that was bringing in candy that I bought from Sam's and was selling them for $1 on the on the
Sure.
playground. And then once I got into middle school, I was then I got into donuts and pies and cookies.
So you were a serial entrepreneur before you got out
Oh
of junior
yes.
high, huh?
Yes. And then
Okay.
I think that was around the time when like gluten allergies and like nut allergies became really big, and they
Mhm.
like cut off with outside foods from schools and things like that.
Right.
And so it was like, well, now what am I gonna do? Now what am I gonna sell?
Okay. Fantastic. So you get through high school, private school education, that you're a little running around entrepreneur. What was your next step?
So I got married to my first husband and we moved to Kansas,
Okay.
Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
And I I'm trying to say this where I don't hurt any feelings. I do not like that place.
Yeah.
It was very different from where I came from. The diversity was very different. The culture shock of a 2-hour drive was so hard for me to understand where I was going to go. And I was also in a relationship that I should have never been in.
Sure.
And so that made it a lot harder. And so I had to find that within myself to say, no, this is unhealthy and this is not good for me.
Yeah.
So I then went ahead and transferred, and I would like to say I ran
Okay.
as fast as I could
Right.
to Texas. And now I'm here in Texas.
So how old were you when you got married, the first one?
19.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had my son at 20.
Okay.
I was not pregnant when I got married, though. I got pregnant after, but yes, by the time I had my son, I was still 20.
Okay. Well, that's youthful indiscretions happen. Lots of people. I mean, what is it? Youth is wasted on the young. So, looking back, I'm 55. I look back and think, goodness gracious, I made a lot of poor choices. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I finally started ironing out choices. So no harm, no foul on that,
I'm grateful for it for now, right? Like today, I'm grateful that I went through that experience.
Okay. So what'd you do when you got down to Texas? Did you fire up that entrepreneur engine in you, or did you go to work in a particular field? It sounds like you had your son your son in tow, or you had him down there.
Yeah. Yes. So once I realized that I was in a different situation, now I'm a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard for me to get to to Texas, because I was not in the best situation while I was in Kansas.
Okay.
I was not in a very good relationship. I didn't have the freedoms that most women would have in a relationship.
Sure.
So it cost me a lot to be able to move. So
Okay.
when I did come to Texas, I found a family member because, I have this huge family. So I know somewhere, someone somewhere. So I stayed with that family member. And one day I got a job. I had daycare for my son and I had a place to stay. And I was like, that's as far as I need to get for today.
Sure.
Today is what I'm living for.
That's right.
So I did that and I ended up working 3 jobs to start saving. And I wasn't able to entrepreneur then yet.
Okay.
Because I was just really working on, I didn't have a credit score. I didn't
Right.
have, I had just paid my car off 2 weeks before I moved to Texas. I didn't have anything really.
Mm-hmm.
And technically, I was still married,
Yeah.
right? I was running. So once I was able to get my feet on the ground, I got into massage and I massaged for myself, moonlighting. And then I also worked for a spa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I enjoy it's so different listening to spa music all day. It's like I had the most relaxing job at the time when your life is so crazy and just kind of get to touch people and make them feel fulfilled and loved with your hands. And
Right.
so I really enjoyed that lifestyle and being able to do it for myself. So if I needed to make some extra money, I could. I was working at a restaurant. I was also bartending,
Okay.
just cash so that I could save. Eventually, that's where I met my now husband.
Okay.
And his job was right next door to my spa that I worked in. And
Okay.
one side was spa, one side was chiropractic. So I would work with a chiropractor and then turn around and do spa work. So he came in for chiropractic and I knew, I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to marry him." I'm like, "Oh, what's up, Big Daddy? What's up?"
Okay. So he didn't have a chance, is what you're telling me, right?
No, he did not. He had no idea what was coming for him.
Yeah, that's right. The hunters are hunted, right?
Yes.
Right.
And so that's where I met him and bounced around through the spa world and relaxation. And then I realized I want to kind of do this for myself. I think this is what I want to do. So I used a lot of my savings and I built a traveling massage business for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I got me clients. At this time, I don't think that there was too many places for you to advertise what you do. So
Sure.
I used the Nextdoor app. I was using Facebook groups. I was doing all those things, and to the point eventually I get pregnant with my daughter, and I noticed that my hands were not as strong as they used to be. So I took a little bit of time off, and once she was settled and good, I decided I wanted to go back to school. But because my hands were not as strong as they used to be, I was like, okay, I need to be in the spa world. I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing, but how am I going to be able to stay in it when I know that my hands are not the strongest? So that's when I made a pivot into the esthetician world. And that's what I do still today, along with other things, but it's lashes, waxing, makeup, facials, all that great stuff. And I'm able to kind of hone in a little bit more where I can save my hands.
Well, that's good. So, what got you into sort of the marriage counseling and those steps? Was that a next hop, or did you do the esthetician work for a while? Yeah, it's an add-on.
It's an add-on. Me and my husband were having a lot of problems, and to the point where, everybody says every marriage has a problem. But this was to the point where I resented him and he was starting to resent me.
Oh my.
And by finding a coach for my business, she's like, "No, you need to go to this boot camp." And I'm like, "I'm not going to a boot camp, don't try to send." She's like, "I'm like, I don't think he'll do it. I don't want to take off work." And she's like, "No, it's for you. You need to go and get healed first before you even talk to him about anything."
Right.
So I went through there. It's 4 days, and it's like 4 days of therapy, but it's really a boot camp, but it's more like 2 years of regular therapy in 4 days. So I got healed from that, and I was able to soften my heart.
Okay.
And I just told him, I said, hey, if you want this relationship to work, then you're going to have to go through this with me.
Right.
So we went through the marriage part together. And at the end of it, I realized that this is what I want to do. I'm not a big into charity. I rather help my neighbor than someone that I can't necessarily see.
Right.
I'm not really good into giving money. I shouldn't say really good. I'm just not, it's not, I'm more aware of it. So this is my way of giving back,
Okay.
of being able to do that. So they put you through a course. And so they do them about every other month.
Okay.
And they're 4 days, and people all over around the world come in for these 4 days. And we work on healing, and we work on forgiveness, and we work on finding triggers and releasing yourself from those,
Okay.
and the awareness.
So help us. I forgot to do this a little earlier, but we're still good. For those who might want to play along today,
Yes.
where's a good place for them to find you on the internet? So website, social media, etc.
So you can find me at christinebahe.com, and Bar is spelled Bahe, and Christine is with the CH.
Okay.
And
Fantastic.
that's on all platforms.
That's on all platforms. Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you spelled that, because the average person is not going to guess.
No, I just say that he's like part Viking,
Okay.
It makes me feel better about my last name.
So, I see a pattern here. I mean, just a smart aleck of observation. He had no chance because you hunted him down. And then when you wanted to fix it, he had no chance because you told him you're coming, or it's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm beginning to see a little trend here, possibly. I'm not sure. So
I want him to understand where I stand, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where it all breaks down, is boundaries,
Sure.
and not being able to communicate them. Even you say boundaries. I told him, I'm on date number 1. I'm not going to date you for 5 years for you to decide you're not going to be with me. We either
Sure.
need to be engaged or married at our 5-year mark, or I'm just going to date other people. And those were those boundaries of healing that I needed to do for myself.
Wow. 5 years is a long runway. Holy cow.
I mean, if you need it, but
Yeah.
I felt like if you have commitment issues, 5 years you should know in 5 years if you have commitment issues.
Yeah, I always kind of had that number 3 in my head. I always thought 3 years is enough time for you to see your partner at family events and see how they respond, and deaths and marriages and just all kinds of life events will happen in about a 3-year period.
Yes.
And you get to kind of see all of the layers of the onion peeled back, if you want to say, and you get to see the good and the bad. So I always got three. And then I don't know, 5's not a bad number, but I just think, wow, that's a pretty big investment.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. And I also know that with my ex-husband, I did not wait that long, right? I was
Okay.
19 years old. I jumped into it, and now I have a son. So to tell someone you're going to be in my life for 5 years with my son in, a complete package.
Yeah.
You're not going to walk away from something after, 5 years. It's going to be a little bit harder. And he was really young at the time. He was 2.5, I believe.
Okay.
So, now at that point he's calling him dad, Sure. So it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, but I'm not going to wait around for zero commitment.
Okay. So, how now you bring people into these courses, or there's always in person, or now because of the pandemic and stuff, have those shifted virtual? I mean, what has COVID-19 done to your business as far as the counseling or the marriage, coaching?
Yes, with the coaching, they counseled 2 or 3 of them last year, but we started back up in November.
Okay.
In November, and they are in person.
Okay.
There was a a capacity limit was lowered.
Sure.
And the mask wearing.
Okay. Now, were you coming into Texas, or where was the physical location to go for this?
Yes, it's in Plano, Texas.
Okay.
They had at the Hope Center, it's a church. They have a space that you can rent. And so the church themselves had their own COVID standards. And
Sure.
then we also had the state standards.
Right.
Now that we are at 100% zero mask, they're still looking at capacity, but it's a little bit easier to be able to take off your mask and, be in a secluded area than necessarily being like at a concert or something like that. There's only about 100 people, which kind of comes down to about 50 couples, if that. But it's hard to give somebody space and hold space for them when you're wearing a mask
Oh, yeah.
6 feet away, right? So we ask people to be comfortable, but at the same time, make sure that they know that we are genuinely there for them.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's been an interesting thing. I've been somewhat of a smart aleck about the whole mask stuff. It's like, okay, this either the virus is really smart or really stupid, because you walk into a restaurant with your mask on, but you sit down and the virus can't see you anymore.
Right. I have not understood that.
Yeah. Or it's 11 o'clock is the cutoff, but if you had a drink at 11:05, then you're absolutely, the virus is going to get you. So the virus can't find you until 11, but at 11:05 you're in trouble. So
right. Or it can't go around a plastic.
Yeah, that's right. It's so much. I mean, the plastic manufacturers must be making money hand over fist. I mean, everywhere you go, there is just plastic in front of everything. I'm like, okay, what if I were to spit over the top of this? Like,
exactly.
Not that I would, but I'm just
right.
Yeah, it's kind of silly.
And the mask, people want you to wear 2 masks now. I'm like, yeah, it's the person that hit you with the car selling you the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't agree with that. 2 masks is a little intense for me.
I saw my first 2-masker person in a park out in the outside about a month ago, and I was just shaking my head, and I walked past and I just blatantly said out loud, "You can't catch it outside." And there was a 15-mile-an-hour breeze, and I don't know. I mean, I'm just too much common sense guy, and I get myself in trouble because I don't have a very good filter on my mouth, and so I say a lot of stupid things to people, but I really don't understand. We have a survival rate of 99.9%. So, we're really, a lot of the measures that we're taking were just so inexplainable, but is what it is.
I'm right there with you.
We have to deal with it. And what I think has been interesting about the pandemic is the fact that for the first time, so many people, because, the vast majority of the people in the United States live in cities, right? Most of them aren't operating a chainsaw or some other heavy equipment that they could get hurt, right? So they're just literally living in a bubble. So the most dangerous thing you can do is drive your car to work, right? In most cases, for most people. If you work in a cubicle, you're not worried about beams falling on your head or chainsaw cutting off your leg or those type of stuff. So I think what's been interesting to watch the human condition during this pandemic is so many people were finally faced with death, a possible death that they didn't have any control over. Now, you talk to the average construction guy who's running equipment or lumberjack or just anything like that, they're like, no big deal. I deal with danger every single day. But if you were in a person who didn't deal with danger on a regular basis, this was scary as heck, Yeah. But if you were a person that dealt with danger, this is no big deal. It's, bring it on kind of thing. So it's been an interesting dynamic to watch across the whole country. And it's been interesting to see, what people were willing to believe in and follow. And then, goodness gracious, there's never been one version of the truth.
No.
I mean, everywhere you go out on the internet, there's, counterpoints of everything. And it's just become a giant yelling match over the last, year. And it's just like, you know what? I think we're ready to move on. I think we're ready to move on.
I will buy that ticket. I will buy that ticket to move on. I really do feel like the fear is causing people to either act out of abundance or act out of scarcity.
Exactly.
And it's pushing agendas, right, of the two.
Yeah.
Are we saying this is so much, I need to be so hard on this side or so hard on the other, and it's causing division. And I think that's where my podcast really started.
Okay.
That's where it really got to today.
Okay.
I like to tell the story. I'm on Facebook, and 2 of my good friends are going at it over the George Floyd killing.
Okay, sure.
And I'm like, if you knew her, you wouldn't say those words to her. If you knew her, you wouldn't say those words to her.
Right.
It's sad to see. So that's where the birth of the podcast comes. I'm like, well, if you don't know her, well, then you got to meet her.
Right.
And if you meet her, then you'll understand each other's views, because you learn very fast that my views don't work for other people.
Exactly.
I can't live my life like a mom that has 6 kids and I work 2 jobs. That's not my life. So for me to vote or view or feel or see this way works for my life. I'm also not a a CEO company of a Fortune 500 company, my life would look so different. I wouldn't make the same choices as I do today.
Sure.
So calling each other dumb, or you don't understand, or putting a label on them, or making a comment, I find it very heartbreaking
Mm-hmm.
that you can't see past your own opinion because you think it belongs for everybody else. And that's what the podcast is all about, is finding that common ground so that you can say, oh yeah,
Right.
that's only for me. You're right.
Well, I think you're onto something there, because we're more alike than we are different in most cases.
Exactly.
People want the same things. They want to have a decent life. They want to have money in the bank. They want security. They want good, healthy kids. They want good health. They want to be left alone in most cases. This is kind of the American way. And so, but people hop on one side of an opinion of an issue or something, and now people just basically, trash them and consider them these horrible people when they're not. Now I really understand the name of your podcast. You gotta meet her, because when you
Yes.
first threw that out, I'm like, well, and then I thought, well, is that just about meeting chicks, or is that or maybe now that I've learned your pattern with your husband, that you're explaining you got to meet her because you're going to need this gal. So I'm not sure, but anyway.
Yes, to all of that. How about that?
Okay. I guess you can interpret that any way you want, right? You got to meet her. So,
Yes.
dude, you better pay attention to me. You got to meet her, or hey, I'll teach you how to meet chicks, right? So,
Right. Exactly.
or I'll teach you how to understand this person, so you're not such an idiot making judgments.
Exactly. That's where it is.
Okay, fantastic. So, what was the pivot point that made you do it? Start the podcast.
Yeah, it was really that. If I would have to be honest, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was on like a third whiskey sour, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a podcast because people need to start listening to other people's stories,
Sure.
so that we can understand that they parallel.
Okay.
You can feel the same word without having to go through that experience. So to talk to women that have gone through physical abuse, sexual abuse, thoughts of suicide, being the only child, a loss of a child, or even positive things of I'm building my own business, and because of COVID, it soared.
Sure.
It can be, I lost my job, but I made this, and this, and now I'm killing it. And I knew that I needed to tell those stories, because all we really get to see is either the really sad stories that are supposed to cause emotional, damage to you to make them want you to invest, or there are these people that are so far above us that we kind of put them on a pedestal. But what about the people right next door to you?
Sure.
Those are the people that are on your Facebook page.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you're interacting with, and that you can actually see, that are tangible. They can reply to you.
Right.
And we're behind the keyboard warriors,
Oh yeah.
trolls and all that. But what if you heard her story? Would you still feel that way?
Probably not in most cases. And if people sat down and just had a beverage of choice and discussed all these things, they would find out we're much more alike than we are apart. I really agree with that.
Right.
That's great.
I'm over the titles or calling people names, Sure. You voted this way, so you're this, or you believe this, so you're this, or you bought this, so you're this, or you're supporting this. And it's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's your belief of what that company or that lifestyle looks like, and then you're projecting it on other people. And at the end of the day, they're doing that to you. So now we're looking at this as they are different. And like you said, we're more alike than we are different. So to hear that story of, oh no, I bought this pencil, for example, because I like the color, that changes the whole dynamic of your viewpoint on people that buy that type of pencil.
Right. So, I think it's an interesting time in our country, and probably even Western countries. I think a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands to conjure up being upset about lots of things.
Yes.
I grew up my dad was a highway patrolman. We had just an average, farming background. My grandparents and all that stuff. We never We never thought two bits about race. We didn't think two bits about social economics. We didn't think two bits about anything. I went to a high school where there were families that kids were driving Porsches to schools, and then there were kids who basically had enough to eat, barely had enough to eat that week. But nobody cared about all those things. And I think we've had so many comforts over the last 20 years that a lot of people get a lot of time. So now they got time to be upset or mad or worried. Because let me put this back to you for an example. When you were working three jobs, did you have any spare time?
No.
Could you have gone on, okay, and again, I'm not picking on, because with three jobs, could you have gone on to Facebook or Instagram and stuff and gotten into keyboard wars with anybody? No, you didn't have time for that, right? Okay. And I think that's a lot of our problem today. Now, I'm not saying the world doesn't have problems, okay? I'm not that stupid, but I just think that there's so many people who have so much time on their hands. I'm nearly an empty nester. I spent a decade running kids around to sports and things. I have virtually nothing to do. So what do I do at night? I watch stuff on YouTube and I scroll through Facebook and stuff like that because I don't watch regular TV. Well, that's problematic to me because I'm a smart aleck and I say stupid things to people and stuff like that. So it's just this kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like you got too much time on your hands. And then we just jump to all these conclusions. So I think that those two make a really toxic soup. They really do. Because if we were all working harder and working on positive things and stuff like that, I don't think we'd have near as much division in our country right now, because when you're busy doing things that are productive and you're working towards things, you don't have you don't have time to argue about things that are probably going to change in 2 or 3 years anyway.
Right. Correct. Correct.
So is your show, the podcast, is it an interview show, or what's the sort of the format when you're working through your episodes?
Yes. So it is interview style. So I have guest women. I did do a segment for men.
Okay.
I asked them the same questions as I did for the women.
Oh,
but
boy.
it's super fun. I try to ask, I don't have like set questions. I give them outlines.
Okay.
And if there's anything that they're uncomfortable or any subject that they're uncomfortable with, then I allow them to say, nope, I don't want to talk about that. And I just leave that alone because I want their story to shine.
Sure. Be authentic.
Right. So I ask their age. I always ask their ethnic background.
Okay.
Reason being is because sometimes you could be this in your blood, but you were raised this, and it makes you culturally different than what your racial background is. And like you said, today we didn't think, back then we didn't think about this and this and this. So that's one of those things that I love to ask. And I always ask, how do you see yourself in social media or in the media? Do you see yourself as one of the stereotypes that you would fall into? So if you see yourself on TV, who is that on your TV that you see? So how do you connect with other people, because that's who we're all seeing, and that's where stereotypes kind of come from to today. So they can say, no, I don't see myself because I am a Black woman that has an afro, but they all try to make us supernatural or whatever it may be.
Right.
And they can kind of debunk those stereotypes that we've already been programmed to kind of believe. And I always have my Spitfire questions where I ask them just random fun questions, 1 or 2 answers to each one of those.
Fantastic. Well, if you were interviewing me, my answer to that question of who will I identify on TV, I'm J-Lo.
Oh, there you go. At the Super Bowl, J-Lo, or...
Oh, okay, I'll take the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl. Okay, well, man, you got some moves then.
See, I'm a smart aleck. I don't really take a whole lot of things too serious. Right. So, well, that's great. I'm glad you're doing this. I think it's really a value because we just don't stop anymore. We just don't stop and listen and try to understand and get inside the head of people. I don't remember who said this, and whether a person is of faith or not. But I think this is a really true statement. It was said one time that don't judge me because I sin differently than you.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one.
And it's really the truth. I mean, we all walk through this life and none of us are perfect. We're making mistakes on a day-to-day basis. Some are intentional, some are not, some are, results of other reactions to things. But everybody's sins are different, and it doesn't make us any better or any worse. And so
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think you're doing a really good thing. So you've got season 3 coming up, right?
Oh, so season 3 is already out. It's publishing now. We
Okay,
should be done with that in July, and I'll be working on recording for season 4 next
fantastic.
month. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
super excited.
So do you
Um,
have all your topics and direction picked out for season 4?
yes, so I'm going to be talking with women about friendships and girl code and how do you make friends? Why is that important? If you're introvert, extrovert, why do we need to talk about that so that we can love and pour into our other friends that might fall in that category and kind of get to dig into that person's mind where you wouldn't ask your normal friend that question, right?
Okay, right. Well, just following the line of logic here. So, because you've been a powerful influence in your relationship with your husband, are you forcing him to listen to all of these episodes?
He won't listen to it. And it makes me so mad. He's like, I listen to you all day. Why do I want to listen to you on the radio? And I'm like, it's not a radio, it's a podcast.
That's funny. That's funny. See, I just had to jide you on that, right? So
Right. He's just not about it. But he works so much that I don't even think he would have time to listen to it if he wanted.
yeah, see, now he's a smart man. He doesn't have enough time to engage in content that's going to get him into a keyboard warrior discussion.
Yes,
right?
exactly. He's planning it out well. If he doesn't listen to it, then he doesn't have to give me his opinion.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I thank you for coming on and being so transparent, and I'm excited about your show. You're doing really some good things.
Thank you.
People, please do check it out. Is You Got to Meet Her, and it's not about dating, okay? So it's You Got to Meet Her, all right? And it's not about just meeting Christine, even though Christine is the character behind the whole thing. So I have another question for you. That's kind of the transparent question that I ask all my guests, okay? And they get it the first time. So, we have this thing in life called a bucket list. All right. So all the things that we want to learn or do or see, before we die. Right. Well, there's always an opposite of everything in the universe. Okay. So the opposite list is things you don't want to do. So it rhymes with bucket, starts with an F, but I won't say that. Okay. But you can. Okay. So what might be something that would be on your effort list? Okay? Now, while you're thinking about that, okay, I'll give you a couple examples. Like I did a Lakota sweat lodge. Never doing that again. Never. I have no interest in doing that. Suffocating in heat with drumming and chanting going on. Not my story. Not my story. Okay. I'm not eating sardines. I'm not going to open up a tin can and see something that's looking back at me. Not going to do that again, ever. And then the last one, just an example, a lot of people know me. I'm not going back to Mexico City anytime soon because I went there on a business trip and had to hire armed guards to go to a business meeting. Okay. So those are 3 examples of things on my effort list. What might be on your list?
I know this might sound really weird, but I cannot have a minivan.
Okay. No, I'm right there with you.
And my parents had one growing up, and I hated that thing. I had a minivan for my first car because it got hammy. It was a 95 Ford Windstar.
Oh my goodness.
It was apple red. And I mean, my friends loved it because I could carry all 10 of us, and I was the only one that had air conditioning. But I will never go back to a minivan, no matter how nice they are, because I've been in some nice ones.
Sure.
They've come up since 95 Ford Windstar.
Well, okay, I'll share a secret with you. I raised 5 kids. If anybody sees over my shoulder, got my kids, my grandson up there. And I refuse to ever drive a minivan, ever, ever. I drove Suburbans the entire time. I didn't care about the universe. I didn't care about the fuel economy. I didn't care about the cost of the tires. My ego would not allow me to drive a minivan. And it was just because of, the minivan drivers. I just couldn't relate to them.
It's just not my life anymore.
That's right. Well, that's a good one. That's unique. That's right up there on the top of the list up there. If you get a chance, I actually interviewed the bucket list guy. He is, and then his bucketlistguy.com. He's down in Australia. His name is Trav Bell, episode 60. He's hilarious. And he talks about the whole concept of just living a purposeful life. And it sounds like you're on that path. You're doing things that are very purposeful. So,
have you heard of the 100 Fears and Experiences?
No, I haven't.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, you are?
Yes, so you write down as many experiences as you want. Some people do 100 fears and experiences in 100 days,
Hmm.
but I did 50, and I was supposed to do it for the year of 2020, but kind of
Yeah,
got shut down a little bit.
right.
But you put all the different things that you want to do, and you work through that list. So I had a big fear of guns, and so I had a good friend of mine take me to. I mean, we're in Texas, so it's not hard to find a gun or a
Gone,
gun
right,
range,
right.
So
Or
he took.
people carrying a gun, right,
Right. I went out there for 3 hours and I got really good and now I feel comfortable. A weird one was I don't like musicals. I was like, I cannot do it. Like it's a fear of mine to go to a musical.
But you're
I
from
went to one.
Oklahoma. That's one of the
I
biggest musicals of all time.
oh goodness, no, I can't. It's the singing and the dancing. I don't get but I went. I had a good time. I've been to three since where I would never have gone and done that. I've been hypnotized, which was a fear of mine. I learned how to crochet,
Well,
so that
looks
might
like
be a thing to look into.
you're just plowing through that list. That's great. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. We'll get you back on, check back in with you coming up. And thank you for much for sharing your story and being so transparent. And I like what you're doing.
Thank you for letting me come on.
Okay. Until next time, folks, we'll call that a wrap for this episode of the Rex Andrews Show. Don't forget to stop by Christine's website. So it's Christine with a C and then Bar, Bahe. Okay. So there, check her out. Then also check her out on our site at rexandrewsshow.com. So until next time, the three things I always say, a little bit contradictory: be safe, but be bold, and make it a great day.